G'day and welcome back to Convergently Speaking. The topic for today is Men Need Men. Quite a pithy little saying, I thought, and maybe it'll become a hashtag at some point. This little phrase or line was actually posted at the end of a Facebook status update that I did a few weeks back, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. Wasn't something I strategically came up with to make a catchy sounding comment. But it's something that's really stuck with me and I've thought about a lot since. The idea that as men, we need other men. And the word need here, I think, is really important. I think it's central. I don't think men are okay on their own, but if they have other men around, then that's like a bonus. I wholeheartedly believe that men need other men. So I want to actually read the original post. This is what I wrote. Men need the support of other men, and possibly fathers even more so. Personally, trying to be a good dad whilst providing enough money and not burn out in the process is a never-ending challenge. Getting together as blokes, opening up and being real isn't the norm here in Australia. I'd like to see that change. With the astronomically high male suicide rates, something needs to change. Men need men. Something I wrote quickly without a lot of thought, although it is a topic I've thought a lot about in the past. But it just came from the heart and I posted it, and well, I wanted to post it, so I did. I got almost 100 likes on this and numerous comments and a few shares, which just showed me what a pertinent and current and relevant topic and needed conversation there is. We often hear these days the term the crisis of masculinity, and I firmly believe there is a real and genuine crisis of masculinity. On the one hand, we hear from society explicitly, or maybe implicitly, that men should be tough, they should be strong, they should be providers, they should be stable and a firm foundation for their families. We've got this concept of the bad boy in society and women that like the bad boy. There's no doubt that a percentage of women like a man who's a bit rough around the edges. I don't want to put words into other people's mouths as to why, but this archetype or this framing of the tough and rugged man is something that exists. But the other end of the spectrum, we also hear about this idea that men should be getting more involved in the domestic duties, that men should be sensitive, that men should be emotionally present, emotionally involved, that it's okay for men to cry. And implicitly, I think sometimes the message that we receive as men is you just need to be more like women. Personally, I don't think it's an either-or thing. I don't think as men we have two options. Be tough but unemotional. Be rugged and daring, but unable to express our love for our family, unable to emotionally connect with those around us, or be sensitive, soft, empathetic and caring, and essentially be a female in a man's body. I wholeheartedly believe that both of these things, which can be seen as being at different ends of the spectrum, are stereotypes. And while stereotypes come from truths, they're partial. These stereotypes have an element of truth, but they swiftly miss the core issues. What I think we need to do with men at this point, what I think I need to do as a man, as a father at this point, is to encourage in others and nurture in myself a synthesis of strength and courage and the best expressions of these typically masculine traits. And when I say masculine, I don't mean men. Women also possess, I believe, masculine traits. From a Jungian perspective, is that we have both feminine and masculine within us. So I think we need to nurture these things. I think we need to acknowledge that within us there is a desire to fight, to stand up, to be strong against injustice on behalf of those that we love and care about. And own that. But direct this energy and direct this impulse in the right direction. Use it in the right way. Not to exploit and use whatever power and control we may have to simply pursue our own desires and agendas, but to further the cause of those that need that. Which of course includes our own needs. I think masculinity involves standing up for what we need, being assertive. Not undervaluing our needs and saying we don't have any and we're this rugged individual that can do it all on our own, because quite frankly that's rubbish. But not to swing the other way either and demand that all our needs are always met and that we be waited on hand and foot. So I believe that real courage can be found in the context of standing up, and to use an overused phrase, speaking our truth. But courage is also found in humility. Courage is also found in acknowledging when we make a mistake. That takes real courage. It takes courage to own up to our faults and our errors and our fears and our failings and our regrets. To own up to the times where we used our power or our influence or our strength for bad, and to even weep over these things. I'm the first one to acknowledge there are some atrocious expressions of masculinity and maleness in our society. As a sensitive man who was once a sensitive boy, I experienced various versions and degrees of bullying or just shaming for the types of things that I was interested in. Simply the fact that I wasn't into cars and sport. I'd rather organise my stamp collection than kick a football out on the street. And as an adult, I've experienced my fair share of toxic masculinity, or even just men with very vulnerable egos that project that brokenness and insecurity onto others. However, and this is a big however, in my life currently I have dozens of conscious-minded, loving and caring female friends, and dozens of conscious, loving, empathetic male friends. I've got plenty of both. I believe there's bad eggs in both categories, and I believe there's probably a greater percentage of good eggs in both categories. So I think it's time that we as a society get back to clarifying and articulating again what a good man is, what a healthy expression of masculinity really truly looks like. Just a few nights ago, I again ran a small men's group at my place. A bunch of men that I know through a whole range of different contexts, whom as they shared and talked and listened, all had one thing in common. a genuine and deep desire to be better men, and to support other men to be better. Of course, for confidentiality's sake, I'm not going to launch into the nature of what was discussed and the nature of what was shared. But as I sat there and I listened to the men sharing, it solidified yet again the absolutely overwhelming need for men to have safe places to be themselves, to acknowledge their struggles, to acknowledge their pain, to acknowledge their challenges, and to not be judged for that. We actually maintain a fairly strict culture of sharing and a commitment to deep listening. So as one man shares, we all sit there and we listen, and we refrain from the need to respond, to try and jump in and repair or fix, or even just comment on what's being said. But rather we sit there in solidarity. I can't speak for the others, but for me personally, whenever I sit in these spaces, these sacred spaces with other men, it hits me just how deeply I need other men, how deeply men need men. We've been sold a lie that only women need to get together for emotional support, to debrief the day, to get stuff off their chest so they can move forward in a emotionally healthy way. Men need this too, and whenever I've seen these spaces created in a context where they feel safe and they feel they're not going to get belittled or shamed, they open up. And it's not like this is totally unique. We do have spaces and corners in society where there is a little bit of a blow-off valve for men in this regard. At sporting events, we see men getting emotional and passionate, putting aside some of that stoic image. The way we sometimes see men as fathers of daughters depicted shows the depth of emotion and care and love that does reside there. And of course, the other major one is alcohol. You put a few drinks of alcohol into most Aussie blokes, and all of a sudden they start becoming expressive about their love for their brothers or their friends or whoever. All of a sudden it becomes appropriate to be more expressive, to be more rambunctious and touchy-feely. I had an old high school mate that I could tell how drunk he was based on whether he would shake my hand, give me a hug, or give me a kiss. If he was really under the weather, he would be expressing his care and appreciation for our friendship by a kiss on the cheek, or at least a hug. So I suppose where all this is leading is that if we don't give men healthy outlets, we don't give men spaces to deal with this stuff, to be themselves, there's two things that are likely to happen. It's going to leak out, not necessarily in unhealthy ways, but in less intentional ways through drinking or through sport or through other similar things. But it may stay inside and it may eat them up slowly. We constantly hear about the statistics of women killed by their partners. Statistics on partner violence and especially murders of women dying at the hands of their male partners are absolutely heartbreaking. And without wanting to take away from that at all, I want to add the fact that not only are the highest rates of deaths caused by domestic violence attributed to men, the highest rates of male death is either by other men or by their own hand. Men are killing each other, they're killing their partners, and they're killing themselves at astounding rates. It's an absolute epidemic. This is a sign that is something deeply, deeply wrong about the way we're understanding and expressing masculinity in our society. You can't lock up a man and tell him to just be more feminine and assume everything will go okay. You also can't say men should do whatever they want and take control and be the big man and take control using whatever means necessary and expect that everything will be okay. So for you men listening, what I want to say is that it's time for us to stand up and pursue and embrace and create, if necessary, healthy ways to look after ourselves and each other. Because if we don't deal with that shit, if we try and keep it all in, it's just going to boil over. It's up to us to find good and healthy outlets for this stuff. It's not up to our partners or our mates to do this. We need to take responsibility for this before the issues that we're wrestling with, the demons that we're wrestling with, grow to a point where we can't control them. So that was kind of a heavy one for today. It's obviously a topic I'm very passionate about. It's a topic I'm very passionate about, and it's a topic that's a bit taboo in our society at the moment. Even acknowledging that there are challenges that men have, by some seems to be interpreted as saying women don't have challenges. There is honestly no competition. Life is hard, as I said on a previous episode, and both men and women, mothers and fathers, and those without children, those that are single, and everything in between, have challenges, have real, valid, and legitimate challenges. And quite frankly, we can't deal with these challenges on our own. We are communal creatures. Too much isolation and we become despondent and depressed and the very worst versions of ourselves. So if you take anything away from the podcast today, it's that men need men. We need each other, and I encourage you, if you are a man without close friends, without outlets for either your rage or your passion or your confusion or simply the big ideas you have about your life and where you want to go, then I encourage you to reach out and find some blokes. Hit the pub or put on a barbecue for your mates and risk a bit of vulnerability. So thanks for listening to the podcast today. And if there's a man in your life you think could benefit from this message, I'd love if you could take a moment to forward it to them. And I keep forgetting to say this, but if you'd like to drop me a line, feel free to email me at convergentlyspeaking@mailfence.com. I'd love to hear from you. Have a good day.